Today we're going to reproduce a $20 million DeFi hack. I'm talking about the Sonne Finance exploit. Sonne is a compound fork. In May 2024, it was exploited and $20 million were stolen. We are going to deploy the clone of the vulnerable protocol again, and we're going to try to exploit it again. Of course, it's not going to be with real money, but just with some tokens that we create out of nowhere in order to reproduce the attack. And eventually, we will try to block it using this new innovative tool that is called Phalcon. We have already prepared in the past a tutorial of how we can use Phalcon to block in real time and prevent huge DeFi Web3 hacks. But since the previous video, the tool improved significantly. There are many new features that we're going to cover in this video, and we're gonna test it once again in a real live attack and see if it's capable to block it before it hurts users and before the hacker is capable of stealing users' money and funds. So I'm super excited to see the results, and without further ado, let's get started. Before we start with the reproduction of the exploit, I want to do a quick intro about the Sonne Finance hack. Sonne was a compound V2 fork. Compound V2 is one of the most leading lending protocols, money market protocols. Sonne Finance was deployed on multiple blockchains and the TVL was quite big. As you can see over here, few tens of millions of dollars, 30 million, 40 million. And here in May 2024, unfortunate exploit happened. A malicious hacker exploited the protocol, exploited the vulnerability, and drained all the TVL. More than $20 million were lost due to a rounding issue that is very well known in Compound protocol. So this issue is already known by Compound, but it's not fixed, and a lot of protocols that are forking Compound and deploying this lending protocol on different blockchains are vulnerable to this particular exploit. To summarize the exploit, this exploit and vulnerability happens when there is an empty market without any tokens. In such cases, there is some kind of attack that is called a donation attack, that essentially we donate some tokens to the C token smart contract, the lending market of Compound, or in that case, the fork of Compound. And once we do this small donation and a course of action that we execute one after another, we are capable of causing a rounding logical issue, mathematical issue in the smart contract, and eventually drain all the other pools of these lending protocols, because these pools are dependent on each other. When you deposit money to a pool and you define it as your collateral, then you can borrow other assets from other pools. And when one pool goes wrong, it puts the other pools at risk. And this is exactly what happened in Sonne Finance. So they were actually aware of this vulnerability, and they always were cautious when it coming to deploying new markets. But because of another vulnerability that they had in their time lock smart contract and in their governance mechanism, the attacker was able to execute the governance operations in a different order and make the markets vulnerable to this particular exploit, and then drain all the money of the users. And here in my VS Code, I have a clone of the vulnerable version of the protocol. You can see here all the smart contracts, and we deploy them on Binance Smart Chain because it's just comfortable and cheap. And now we have all this vulnerable version of the protocol, all the controller contracts, the C token contracts. We have also an exploit contract that is going to exploit the protocol, but we are deploying a clone version on Binance Smart Chain to try to reproduce the attack and demonstrate it. One very important thing to understand is that the liquidity is actually relies in this C token smart contract. Every market, every token that you can either deposit, provide liquidity, or borrow, make a loan, is called a C token, compound token. It's a fork of Compound, of course. And you can essentially, every time there is a new market, a new C token contract is being deployed and liquidity is being added, and the controller is kind of the manager of all the pools. It's the one who decide how much liquidity, how much collateral you have, which market is enabled as collateral, which market you can borrow from, and all the ratios and all the parameters is through the controller. But the actual liquidity is in the C token smart contract. And these are all the addresses in Binance Smart Chain that we deployed. We can just copy them and open them in Binance Smart Chain to see the contracts. This is the controller deployed on Binance Smart Chain, and this one is the proxy of the SO wrapped ETH. SO stands for Sonne Finance. Wrapped ETH is essentially the C token of wrapped ETH. This is the money market for wrapped ETH, where people can deposit wrapped ETH and get this SO wrapped ETH token that represents their deposit, this receipt token. And you can see this market currently has around 100,000 wrapped ETH deposited. Of course, it's not real wrapped ETH, just a token that we deployed for the sake of the example. And we're going to exploit, or try at least to exploit, this exact SO wrapped ETH market and try to drain all the ETH and reproduce the exact same attack. But before we reproduce the attack and execute it again, we want to try and configure our Phalcon block to see if it's able to detect the attack in the mempool and block it before it actually happens. So the way Phalcon block works is that you can add your smart contracts of your DeFi protocol here in the dashboard. So you add a contract, then you add monitors that monitor the smart contract. And Phalcon has its own scanners and engines that all the time scan the mempool, all the pending transaction, and see if there is any transaction that is going to harm your protocol. And once it detects a malicious transaction, a potential malicious transaction, then actions can be triggered automatically. And actions are here to prevent the attack, whether it didn't happen yet, it's still in the mempool, and we are going to front run the attacker and then pause the protocol or drain the liquidity, do any emergency action to block the attack, or whether sometimes attack happen in multiple transactions. So Phalcon is able to detect the transactions also in the block, see that harm was made to the protocol, and then block the attack to mitigate the risk, pause the smart contract so the attacker won't be able to continue exploiting the vulnerability and draining funds. And now we'll go through Phalcon and we'll try to configure the system so we can prepare this defense mechanism and see if we're able to block the attack. So this is the dashboard, that's how it looks like. And we're gonna head over to the contract section and add 2 smart contracts. The first contract that we are going to add is the wrapped ETH market that we are going to try to exploit. So I'm going to copy this address over here, click here, add contract, choose the network BSC, paste the contract address, and Phalcon automatically gonna detect some stuff from the blockchain itself, but we don't want, we know it's a proxy contract to the wrapped ETH market, but we don't want to name it as a transparent upgradable proxy. We want to name it as wrapped ETH. So I'm just gonna do something like so wrapped ETH proxy. Okay, so this is the proxy to the SO wrapped ETH contract, and we're gonna submit it over here, and then the contract will be added to our contracts library. The second contract that I'm going to add is the time lock contract. The way it works with DeFi protocols usually is that we have a time lock contract to schedule and then execute operations. Usually we have a multi-signature wallet, usually it's safe, and then we schedule operations, we sign them with multiple signers to have maximum security, and then we execute them. We need to add a time lock contract over here because we will need to run actions, and this action will be to stop the protocol, to stop the wrapped ETH market, so no one will be able to borrow and deposit once we trigger this malicious transaction. So let's click here at contract, choose again BSC, paste the address, and we have here Sonne time lock controller. That's great. This is our time lock contract. Click submit. And now we have the 2 contracts that we're interested in, and we can move on to the next step, which is the monitors. We want to add monitors to the wrapped ETH market in case something goes wrong. Let's create here a new monitor, and let's name this monitor wrapped ETH market. So anytime something goes wrong with this market, we can know that, and we choose here BSC, and we can already select our SO wrapped ETH proxy contract, which we are going to monitor. Here we have monitor rules. We can choose whether we want to monitor things both on the mempool and on the blockchain mined transactions. We will choose function invocation. The only way that I know to take money from this contract is using the borrow function. So we want to monitor every transaction that at some point going to trigger the borrow function and try to borrow funds from this wrapped ETH market. So I'm choosing here function invocation, and here I'm going to select the function. I'm going to search for the borrow function, and this is the function that we want to monitor. And we can also select specific parameters. If there are certain parameters that are being passed to this function, we want to trigger this monitor rule. Now we can either choose here monitor all transaction or filter transactions via attack detection engine. We want to choose the second option because we don't want to monitor and launch a block action to every time someone tries to borrow funds from the market, because it happens a lot of times and it's probably going to yield a lot of false positives, and we don't want to pause and block the protocol when it's a legitimate transaction. So we want to activate Phalcon automated attack detection engine, and we're going to choose here only transactions that are classified as attack transactions that are going to exploit and attack our smart contract. And Phalcon block has its own magic, its own algorithms to detect and to simulate whether this transaction is actually going to harm the protocol and steal money from the smart contract. So we choose here attack. And for now, we're going to leave blank the notification, the automatic action. We're going to first create the monitor, then move on to the action. So let's submit here the monitor and move on to the next phase. By the way, since the previous video, the UX of Phalcon went through a huge upgrade, and you can already see that the UX is way better. Everything makes a lot of sense, very friendly. And now let's move on to the Actions tab. This is the main difference than the previous video that we just created about Phalcon block and the previous attack that we blocked, is that in the previous version, we pre-signed a transaction, a post transaction. We gave it to Phalcon, this signed transaction, and then it was able to launch it on our behalf and block the attack. Now, there is a new upgrade to Phalcon, and this time you can integrate your safe wallet into Phalcon block. The way it works is that Phalcon is going to install a specific module that is going to execute these block operations from your safe wallet. And it's way better and way more secure than the previous method. And it's also way more convenient, because last time, anytime a block happens, you had to re-sign a new transaction with a new nonce, give it to Phalcon, and it would launch it the next time there is an attack that it needs to block this new safe integration. This is way more secure and way more convenient. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to try to integrate our Phalcon block together with Safe. And this is our safe wallet that controls the Sonne protocol, the Sonne Finance protocol, that is capable of scheduling and executing transaction through the time lock smart contract. And we want to connect it to Phalcon block. So we're going to click here, add module, and we're just going to leave it as is and click start setting. So these are the basic settings, and we have first to choose the module name. So I'm going to call it pause so wrapped ETH market. Let's use capital P. And this is just a module that is gonna pause the so wrapped ETH market in case something goes wrong. All right, so now we need to choose the contracts to be guarded. That's why we added the time lock smart contract, because now we're gonna send transaction in this action. This model is going to trigger this time lock contract. So we click here, add contract, and we select here the time lock, Sonne time lock contract. And here we choose first the schedule operation. As I mentioned before, first we have to schedule an operation, and then we can execute it using the time lock smart contract. We're going to leave here all the parameters empty because this is just the model. But once we create the actual action, we're going to fill the parameters for this specific block. Let's add here another contract. It's going to be the same contract again, the time lock, but this time we're going to choose the execute function. Where is it? Here it is. And again, we're going to leave all these parameters empty for now. And this is our Guardian account. So this is the EOA account that is going to eventually trigger and shoot this transaction to the blockchain. Phalcon block already creates a Guardian account for us, which we can fund with BNB, and it will be able to launch and trigger transactions. But just in case, let's also connect our EOA connected account 49D. So I'm just going to add it just in case and click here, submit. We're going to sign this transaction using our MetaMask wallet that is connected to Phalcon block. And now we successfully added to the queue, and we need to go to Safe Wallet, and we have a button that allows us to execute this operation and allow Phalcon block to create this module on our Safe Wallet. So I'm going to click here, execute, scroll down, execute, and we're creating this new safe module and approving the transaction. It will cost some transaction fees. We're going to launch a transaction using MetaMask, and now it will create this module for us. All right, that's great. So the module is created. We can click here, finish. That's it. We see that everything went through. We go back to Phalcon block. We integrated Safe into Phalcon, and now we can create a particular action that we want to launch when a monitor is triggered. So let's create a new action over here. And now we can fill here the details. The action here is pause Soraped ETH market. The network is going to be BSC. Trigger source is going to be both on-chain and mempool. Whether Phalcon detects something malicious, suspicious, whether in the blockchain, if it's already mined, or in the mempool, we want to send a trigger transaction, and to block it, this is the action mode. So this is the previous way that we used to protect. Now we're going to use delegate mode. We're going to use our safe module in order to pause the protocol instead of sending pre-signed transactions to Phalcon beforehand. So let's select here delegate mode, and we already have the delegate module created for safe, this pause Soraped ETH market. Let's just add here action, so we know that this is an action and this is the module, and here we have the execution details. So let's add here the first execution is going to be the time lock contract. The method will be scheduled, and now we need actually to fill in the parameters. So which target address we want to send a transaction from the time lock contract. So the time lock is just the operation, but eventually the transaction to pause the market is in the Unitroller smart contract. This contract right here, this is the contract that receives the pause command and can pause market. So this is the Unitroller. We're going to send here the target address. The value is going to be 0 as well as the delay. We don't want any delays for this time lock operation. We don't want to send any value of BNB. We just want to execute it as soon as possible. The predecessor is going to be empty. We don't need anything over here. Now we just need to fill the salt and the data. The salt need to be a unique key that is unique both to this exact execute and exact schedule and execute. It should be the same salt, but it should be unique. You cannot have two operations in your time lock with the same salt. So we need to come out with a unique salt. It's essentially just a bytes 32 value. So we can just go to BSC scan, just choose a random transaction over here and take the transaction hash and just paste it as our salt. This is our unique salt. And this is the most important thing. This is the data that we're going to pass to this Unitroller smart contract. And this data should include both the signature hash of the function that we want to trigger, the pause function, and also the parameters, which markets we want to pause. So I prepared beforehand the pause transaction to the wrapped ETH market, and this is the signature hash 0x and then the signature hash of the pause function, and here this is the address of the wrapped ETH market, and one states here to pause the market. Now we have to do the exact same thing again because this is the schedule operation. We need to add another execute operation, so we select again the time lock contract, now the execute function, and we're gonna paste here the data. Where is the data? This is the data. This is gonna be 0, and here we're going to copy the same salt. This is it's a key, it's important. And the same predecessor over here. And the target address is going to be, again, the Unitroller smart contract. Once we created both the schedule and the operation, we can just click here the sending strategy. And this is very interesting. This is a strategy that Phalcon block is going to choose in order to block and front run the transaction. The bidding increment against exploiter is how much fee Phalcon block is going to send more in terms of gas than the attack transaction. So if the attack transaction sent $100, if we select here 50%, we're going to pay $150 to front run the attacker and block it. The upper limit is like how much Phalcon block need to use in order to block the attack, some kind of a cap of the total money that you have in your Phalcon EOA account. So let's put it just 80%. So you can use up to 80% of all the money that you have in order to block this attack. And you can bid every time 50% more than the attacker. So it might be a bid war, right? The attacker is bidding $100. We try to front run with 150. Then the attacker tries to front run us with 200. Then we increase the bid again and again and again until we're able to front run the attacker up to this hard cap of our balance. Oh, and by the way, due to collaboration with Relayers and block builders, Phalcon is able to efficiently front run the attack transaction and make sure that the pause or the defense transaction will be mined and entered to the block first. Let's submit here this action. Now we need to do two things. First, we have to deposit here native tokens. So the delegate, so we can pay for gas fees. So let's deposit now over here. This is the address, and we need to increase this BNB balance. So we'll use my MetaMask wallet to send some funds to this particular account. Let's send around $4. Let's do something like this. Yeah, around $4 should be enough. I'm just gonna fund it with some BNB for gas fees. And before we continue and move on and see if it's able to protect and block the attack, I want to mention that this innovative tool is very, very new and very innovative because it's literally blocking millions of dollars hacks that malicious black hat hackers are trying to exploit, and it essentially protects DeFi protocols and their users. So if you're a DeFi protocol, you definitely want to check it out and try it out with your protocols. Start monitoring your contract and defining actions in case something goes wrong. And if you're watching this video, you're very lucky because I have a partnership with Phalcon. And if you use the link in the description below, you get both 7 days free trial and also $1,000 discount for your Phalcon block subscription. So if you're a DeFi developer or you're a founder of a DeFi protocol, you definitely want to make sure that your users are safe and give Phalcon block a try. You have a free trial. You can use the link in the description below. If it doesn't work, just use the key code, the referral code JohnnyTime, and you'll get right away the trial and the $1,000 discount. And the last thing that we have to do is to link the action to the monitor. So we're going to go back to our monitor that we created beforehand, and we're going to click here detail. You can see that it's currently offline because we didn't link any action. We didn't enable it offline due to lack of notification or action, right? So we're going to go here and click here edit. We're going to go here to automated actions and select our action, pause, Soraped ETH marker action, on-chain mempool available. Notification channels is another cool thing. You can add your email address, your Telegram, your Slack account, whatever it might be, and you can get an email notification message whenever the monitor is triggering something. I'm not going to use it right now. You can try and explore Phalcon later. Using my link in the description below, you have the trial for free. You can check it out. Let's click here, submit. And now we can see that our monitor is online. We can also go to the action tab and see that our action is active and available, which means that we should be all set. And now it's the money time. We want to see if Phalcon block is capable of blocking the attack that was super dreadful. $20 million lost a few months ago. Actually, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. This is crazy. And let's refresh the pledge because I don't see here the BNB that I just deposited. Oh, okay. Now we have it 0.07 BNB. So we have some funds to block the transaction. And since all the protocol is already deployed, the liquidity is there, all I have to do is just to run this exploit foundry script. And this script is going to launch and reproduce the attack. And it's going to use this empty velo market, do this rounding issue, donation issue, and eventually try to drain this Soraped ETH market, drain all the wrapped ETH from this market. And we're going to try now and launch the exploit and see if Phalcon is able to block it or not. So this is our exploited. We're going to use Forge and Foundry to run it with this attack signature with the Soraped ETH market. This is the money that we're going to try and drain. We use this RPC URL and we use broadcast slow and a lot of verbose to see as much information as we can. Let's launch it and see what happens. All right, guys. So we have something very interesting here. We launched the exploit over here. We see that we didn't need to compile. We're just setting up the EVM using chain ID 56, which is Binance Smart Chain. We're going to pay some fees. This is BNB, not ETH. And we see here that the transaction actually failed. We have here the transaction hash and we see that it failed. And now I want to take this transaction hash and see why it failed. Let's go to BSC scan and paste here this transaction hash. And we can see that it failed because we have borrow is paused. It means that essentially Phalcon block was able to front run the attack transaction. This is the attack transaction and pause the protocol before the attack happened and prevent these attacks that happened. We just reproduced a $20 million hack. We see here that the go function didn't go through, the attack failed. And if we go now back to Phalcon, we should see all the information. We can see here triggering record. Phalcon detected an attack transaction in mempool that will cause the function borrow to be called and it triggered an action. We can also click here and see what exactly happened. We have the attack transaction over here. So this is the triggering transaction. We can see that Phalcon detected this attack transaction. We have here a link to the Explorer, see what it tried to do. It tried to borrow funds and do this Velo and wrapped ETH. You see that it's trying to do all this malicious exploit that I just explained in the beginning of this video, but it got a revert, borrow is paused. We see the action transaction that was invoked over here. This is the block transaction that was invoked and was successful. Successfully, we front run the runner, the attacker on BNB mainnet. And this is a transaction that the time lock will launch through our safe module to the time lock, to the unit roller smart contract to pause the wrapped ETH market. If we decode here the input data, we'll eventually see all the data we prepared beforehand in our action. And the most interesting thing to see here that both the attack transaction, you see in block 979 and also the block transaction in the same block 979. If you go down and click here, show more, in both transactions, you can see the position in the block. This is the attack transaction. The position in the block is 93. And this is the block transaction. The position in the block is 43, which essentially means that we successfully front ran the attacker and blocked the transaction, paused the protocol, prevented the hack before it was launched on the protocol and before it was able to steal the ETH and the money from the protocol. This is super innovative and super important for smart contract developers and DeFi protocols to use such tools because, you know, you go through an audit, you think you're at a secure code, you have a full test suite, but if you don't have on-chain protection, sometimes things can go wrong and attackers may come, find vulnerabilities that no one saw before and exploit your protocol. This Phalcon block tool provides another layer of protection that you must have these days. It's a small price to pay compared to what you may lose if a hack like this happens. So again, if you want to try it out, check out the link in the description below to get a 7 days free trial and a $1,000 discount. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please smash this like button and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Web3 security tutorials. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.